And I'm going to defer to Vice President DiGirolamo to go ahead and read the Open Public Meeting Act statement.
This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of February 27, 2018 was included in a list of meeting notices sent to newspapers of record and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and has remained continuously posted as required notices under this statute. In addition, a copy of this notice has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk.
Great. Thank you. I'd ask you all to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, Vicki.
Council President Phillipsburg.
Here.
Council Vice President DiGirolamo. Here. Councilman Davis.
Here.
Councilman Look.
Here.
Councilman McVeigh.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. So, this being my very first budget meeting, do I have to make a motion to discuss the budget?
No, you just follow the order of the agenda.
All right. So, starting from the beginning, Mayor Ellis had given us the budget on the statutory date of February 15th. Is that correct, Richard? 15th, yes. And 6 days later had attempted to give us supplemental papers. I guess I would defer to CFO Merlo because I'm not sure what the supplements were for. I think like I said, there was one position in here that had showed the reduction. The new paperwork did not show the reduction, which I just clarified.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what is different with regard to the superintendent of recreation position that he had placed in here. Do you know what the difference is with regard to the original?
Essentially what happened is there were a lot of changes at the very last minute, and we made the changes to all, so the detail and the summary pages are correct.
Okay.
But the supplemental data that backed it up, I forgot to send that out as backup. So essentially what he was doing is he wanted the budget based on what they were prior to council reducing it.
Okay.
He wanted to put that money into the budget, figuring that if we needed it, it would be there for future use.
Excellent. Okay. And the other papers that we have, Council, you all have received these, by the way? Everyone's received these papers?
Yes.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. 2008 salary distribution, which I guess is a supplemental. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Open the door, please.
We have kids in the building, that's why I asked to shut the door.
Unfortunately, we're not allowed to shut the door.
Okay.
Oh, well, I just didn't know if it was gonna get loud or anything, and we have little
Oh, no.
4 or 5-year-olds.
I believe everyone will be able to be civil.
Okay.
And we'll be okay. It's a relatively short
I was
room
looking at
tonight.
the safety of the
Ms.
kids.
Timmerman in the back, she may get a little loud. We'll have to keep an eye on her.
I don't know.
So we do have with us tonight the auditing firm, Mr. Eric Zimmerman, who represents the auditing firm of Suplee Clooney, and if I was saying it correctly? Suplee Clooney. If you could go ahead and explain how the process works with regard to the budget, so the crowd knows.
Well, it's a in-depth process, so you just the entirety there.
I think it.
Sure, absolutely, yes.
So just in general, the procedural process, so the mayor prepares the budget under this form of government, presents it to the council has the budget before it is presented by the mayor. If you just go through the steps that the council tonight is here to undertake.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that this is part of the review process of before you introduce the budget.
Correct.
Once everyone reviews it, votes on it, based on the majority of the council, you'll introduce the budget. Once the budget is introduced, then you have to advertise the budget within then, a minimum of 28 days for municipalities, you have to have a public hearing. So once the introduced budget is out there for everyone to view, then they come back and if they have any questions or, want to talk about and possibly making amendments to what was introduced, you can do that at that time. If there's no objections, then you can go ahead and adopt the budget at that time. But that's after the introduction. You still have not introduced the budget yet. This is just a preliminary meetings. Numbers were put into the budget based on 2017 data so you take all your prior year action for revenues and expenditures and populate into 2018 what you expect to spend or revenues you expect to receive during the year of 2018, and you do it like that to then calculate what the tax rate is going to be for the year. And these are the numbers now that are being presented to you to review and then, introduce if you're ready to do so as a council as a whole.
So if we were to remove things from the budget or add things to the budget, that would come now and then we'd later adopt it?
It could come now or it could come later. I mean, it's better to do it before you introduce because then you avoid having to advertise. Everything's about advertising, and advertising the amendment that before you go back and vote on it again.
Thanks. Yes, you did.
All right, so just to be clear, so this is still in the nascent stage of the budget process.
Right.
So the mayor and his office with the CFO, Bob Merlo,
Yeah.
and other department heads have prepared the budget that they present to the council. At this point tonight, the council can look at it, make recommendations, suggestions, give their thoughts as to how the budget is presented to them.
Yes.
Perhaps offer suggestions as to changes they might want to see in the budget, increases, decreases, etc.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a organic process at this point. We have not yet obviously had the formal budget
Right.
hearing. We haven't opened it up to the public. It's not been introduced to the public
Correct. No.
for formal adoption.
Right. If there's going to be changes made now, there are changes going to be made, and then just, you have to then go back and look and see how it affects your tax rate and things like that.
Right. And the only reason I say all this is so everyone knows why we're here tonight. This is, again, an organic process that the council's undertaking, the first steps of the budget.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Just understand that if you make any changes after it's introduced, depending on the amount of the change, would require re-advertising or whatever. So that's why it's better to do whatever it is that you want to do tonight and, put in the, and let's introduce what is considered to be the final budget.
Excellent. Thank you. And CFO Merlo, thank you for being here tonight. I know you weren't originally scheduled, but I appreciate you making time.
You're welcome.
I believe what we have to do first is, I believe we have to vote whether or not to accept the supplemental forms since they were after the statutory date, since they were provided to us after the statutory date. Right, the mayor had given it to council after the 15th, so we would have to vote whether or not we would accept these supplemental forms. CFO Merlo, you're saying there are no significant changes other than those that I had read in the job descriptions, would that be correct?
That would be correct. You have, in the detail, that is the correct amount. These are just supplemental to back up what is in the detail.
Just want to verify the salary distribution for 2018 and make sure the numbers are demonstrated. Maybe it appears that maybe you forgot this page, the 2008 salary distribution page.
it's in the back of the detail, personnel section, I'm sorry.
Do you see it?
There it is.
Do we have page numbers?
No,
No, sorry.
that
That's
would have been
okay.
really helpful.
That's okay. Okay, so
Sorry.
there is a change.
There, yeah, it is different.
It appears to be,
It's $120,000 of appropriations.
and that was just for those, just under the payroll, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I would, if it's just for the payroll.
It is all payroll.
Especially given the supplemental, I would make a motion to deny if it's just for payroll. I would make a motion to deny the supplemental documents provided to the mayor at the statutory date.
All right, so the motion would be that the supplementary reports were provided after the statutory deadline,
That's correct.
and therefore the council is not going to consider them.
That's correct.
That would be the motion.
Second.
The debate?
I just want to see, is this contained anywhere else, Bob, where it would roll up to equal out? Because these numbers are in fact different than what's in the book.
Yeah,
I mean,
if you look at the
I'm looking for 7781777.72 somewhere.
7,
What section would I find it? This is the replacement document? Where am I going to find that?
I believe it's in the back of the personnel.
Yeah, the one that's in here is different.
yeah, that was the original one that went out, and the one that we sent was just to replace that, for that it matched what was in the detail.
I did email the mayor with a request, and he hasn't gotten back to me. So I know. So that's why I'm making this motion. I feel if there was better communication, maybe this wouldn't be an issue, but unfortunately there's not, so that's why I moved the motion, Councilwoman.
This which matches. This does not.
Well, this is all the distribution. You can speak, CFO.
It's probably easier if I show.
Please, feel free.
This is the new one.
And this right here.
That's all new.
This is all, okay.
Correct.
So, if you look here,
Here's what's in here. This one, equal. This detail. Here. So then you do this number change.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's,
And you won't find it any place in particular within the detail because it's.
Okay.
This is just a summary.
and this number will not be rolling up anywhere?
No.
Adding? Okay.
That's the message.
It's the mayor's salary. Alright, so if you look at the detail.
You can give it a roll. Sorry. Right. So the one that's in here doesn't match?
It doesn't match the detail. This one will match.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
else have any discussion?
Just as a point of order, look, guidance from our auditor as well as from our council. I have a layman's understanding of the local budget law, but there's a specific provision for amendments to the budget and the process for introduction. I'm wondering if, based on the changes that we're possibly considering this evening, whether we have the statutory authority to amend the budget at this point, or whether we have to introduce it and then provide the amendments as provided by the code.
You don't have to, you can make changes without going through the official amendment process. There's no budget that was
It has been formally introduced.
Have we adopted a resolution introducing the budget? I can't
No.
recall.
No.
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 Okay. So if we haven't formally introduced it, do we have the statutory authority to make amendments to the budget as proposed?
Right, so if I make my question.
Yes, you may.
Right. So the process for amending the budget, once it's been introduced, is, as it was discussed and explained previously, the practical way of getting around these hurdles, and I don't want to say hurdles in the sense that these are obstacles that we want to overcome in order to hide anything, but in terms of practicality and efficiency, if there are concerns from the council and the governing body regarding the budget and the appropriations that are being presented to it, they can make those suggestions and they can raise those concerns to the executive office, the mayor, the administration, and then once a budget is presented that hopefully is in line with what the council will adopt and approve, it can be introduced. And if it's not, it's not, and you can have that conversation at that point. But the idea is really for efficiency and expediency in terms of putting everyone's cards on the table as to where the landmines might be laid.
Noted and agreed. So are we saying that the motions that we make this evening are not binding? And if so, would it be more appropriate to list these in terms of a memo type fashion in terms of our objections as opposed to formal motions and process?
Sure. So Councilman Davis, in terms of an expression back to the administrative branch of the town of Phillipsburg, which obviously lies with the mayor, from the council, it's best to have that be in a formal way of a motion. And to the extent, and then there's a motion and a second, there's a discussion regarding not considering amendments to the budget or supplements to the budget as presented by the mayor's office. That's fine, that's on the table. To the extent that that motion is adopted, then it would go back to the mayor and he would, and his office would have the understanding that the council presumably is willing to consider the budget as presented, absent those subsequent amendments that were provided.
Thank you for the clarification, Councilor.
In other words, Councilor, we can vote to remove certain items from the budget, correct?
Right, well, yes, so to answer Councilman Davis's question was the supplement that was provided to the council, there was a motion made not to consider that supplement. That was seconded. So that motion is approved, then the budget that will be considered by the council as a body will not include the supplement.
Thank you. Councilman McVeigh. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you asking?
It's just a supplement.
Right.
The actual budget to be considered is the detail.
Right.
The budget detail is the actual budget being submitted. These are just supplemental data.
Right.
To help you
So
understand.
the problem I have is I've maintained strictness so far with statutory dates. I feel that if I waiver now, that's my personal opinion, I don't speak for the council. If I waiver now, it could be used against me later on. I'd rather not do that. Again, and I did reach out to him. He has not responded, so that is my motion.
Well, the motion's been made, it's been seconded, it's up for
That
discussion.
was, can we repeat the motion, please?
Sure, so the motion that was presented and seconded, and that's now for the council for debate, was to disregard
Okay.
the supplement that was presented by the council in connection with the vote. Sorry?
Playing with his phone.
Yeah.
I was just pulling up
In connection with the budget.
statutes. Sorry.
we're in the discussion phase right now, it's the motion, just the second.
Councilman Woods? Did you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Roll call vote again?
Council Vice President DeGirolamo?
No.
Councilman McVeigh?
Right, so just to be clear, and that's fine, but just again to rephrase, or restate rather, the motion that was presented. The motion that was presented was a motion to disregard the subsequent addition or supplement to the budget as presented to the council. That was seconded. So a vote in favor of that motion would mean that the council would not consider the supplementary data that was presented after the initial presentation to the council of the budget. A vote against that motion would mean that you would consider that data that was presented.
No means yes, and yes means no. So it's pretty quick. Okay. Councilman.
Next person.
Councilman McVeigh?
If you don't want, so, to be clear, so if you don't want to consider the supplementary data that was presented to the council, you're going to vote yes. If you want to consider that data, you're going to vote no.
Right. I'm a yes.
Councilman Lutz?
No.
Councilman Davis?
No.
Council President Phillipsburg?
Yes, the motion does not pass. So, okay, let's open it up for discussion. It appears that we are going to accept the supplemental sheets. Councilman Davis, we'll start with you.
Sure. I'll be honest, based on my understanding of local budget law, I didn't dig as deep into the budget as I will for public hearing. I'm glad and thank you to the CFO and to the mayor. Based on my preliminary notes, it looks like in terms of taxation to the town, we're going to be the lowest that we've been in terms of tax burden since 2014. It's a significant decrease in from last year's municipal tax burden. So I thank you for the work you did in terms of converting our bonds into bonds to reduce our debt service for this year. I do have questions just because there's a few notes regarding particularly the large properties that we have. You noted in here that there were multiple properties that are in the process of tax appeals. Do we have an approximate number of our, if I'm allowed to talk about this on the record, Councilor, or in public, the approximate liability that we have if some of these appeals are successful in terms of our current fund? I mean, it's totally okay. I should have emailed you beforehand, but it's just a question.
Yeah, the auditor hasn't sat. I will say that we do have, according to Fred Botoms, our tax assessor, we do have significant enough money set aside for any appeals. We'll be able to cover them. Unfortunately, I don't know what that number is.
Yes.
It's usually something.
I'd be amazed if you had that number on top.
Yeah, it's usually something that the auditor will work together with myself and with the assessor.
Okay. The other question I had just as and it's rather tangential off that, obviously with the loss of, or the cap on the ability for folks in New Jersey to write off their property taxes as a function of local income and property taxes, Moody's have predicted we're going to lose approximately 7% of our property value here in Warren County. Do we see an uptick? Have we seen an uptick in property tax appeals, and do we need to make some type of preparation in terms of seeing those declines, in terms of protecting ourselves budget-wise over the next few years?
This is a real good question for the tax assessor.
Okay.
However, I know in having conversations with him, the tax rate is approaching $4.
Mm-hmm.
mainly due to the large increase by the school. He seems to feel that when it hits $4, people tend to appeal their taxes more than they appeal their assessment. So we're anticipating, you know, having more appeals this year than probably in the past.
Do you recall how much it cost us when the last time we did
Excuse me, is it possible that Mr. Merlo can use the microphone? We can't hear you.
Yeah, absolutely. How far does this
Give him the microphone here.
Yeah.
No,
I
there's one-
believe it's wireless.
This one work?
Yes.
It's on.
Just for the sake of planning for the future, do you remember what it cost us the last time we did the townwide evaluation?
I do not know that. I don't remember that off the top of my head.
Push the button up.
It's on.
6 days for this, okay.
6 figures.
6 figures? Yeah, at least,
They're not cheap.
yeah.
And the only other question I had in terms of looking at long-term expenditures, it looks like the fire department has quite a few capital expenditures planned over the next few years in the $200,000 plus range. I just don't recall off the top of my head, I haven't seen the documentation what their long-term plan is for those investments. Do you know what those are, just to make sure that we're properly planning? I might have missed it in the document, I apologize.
Yeah, Rich does a good job of planning, doing long-term planning. And I do believe it's in there.
Okay, I may have missed that, and I apologize.
If it's not in there, I'll make sure you all get it, because he did give me a 6-year plan.
Okay. And that's all I have for this evening.
Councilman McVeigh.
Position in the budget.
Anything in this vote? I can say anything.
I wouldn't use names.
Yeah, no, don't.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Spots.
His mic is on.
Lands.
Thank you. He's good.
I will defer to you, sir. Not sure if this is in your wheelhouse. Looking at the different requests from the departments, there's a myriad of different memos. It would, to me, looking at it, we are the town of Phillipsburg. Is there something that can be put out, maybe administration-wise, or I don't know if it would be from your office or not, just to make it a little bit easier on the eyes and more consistent with looking at, I didn't know, I was looking at some things and there was actually requests, but they were on different letterheads, different bonds, different looks, different, I thought the fire department did a very nice job, personally speaking.
Rich does an excellent job with his budget.
Yeah.
Usually in November, we'll ask the departments to put together their requests. If they're not requesting anything other than what they had last year, they normally don't have to, but we ask them to submit if you're requesting an increase in their budget for whatever reason. And they'll put together the different memos that you saw, and that's what I got, and that's the way I receive them. If you want us to do something a little bit different next year, absolutely, we can do whatever you want me. I'll do whatever you want me to do.
It's not what I want. For a non-business set of eyes like myself to look at it, it would have a better feel. It felt like I was mentally jumping around. One thing that Rich did do, used the word justification.
Yeah.
And I just saw that. I saw that in very few spots in this book. Kudos to the creator of that. And a request or justification should go with any amount of money asked. And it puts me at ease and it helps me start the process of between what are wants and what are needs.
Sure.
That's it.
I'll make a note for that for next year, and I'll make sure it's part of the budget package.
If it's helpful to you, it's helpful.
I'm open to suggestions, seriously. Anything that will make your job easier, that's what I'm here for.
I'll be emailing you tomorrow.
I have,
Please, feel free. The floor is yours.
I can talk about it. Sure. Okay. I had mentioned earlier in the meeting regarding the amount of the vacancy time for the business administrator. I'm a firm believer of use it or lose it. Not quite sure why $60,000 for $65,000 is constantly being budgeted, and the number is, I'm going to approximate, I don't know, maybe a year and a half that hasn't been there. So there's a pool of money that really shouldn't be shown, in my opinion, because there is one position that's listed on the, I will call it a table of organization, and that's the clerk's position falls under that. One clerk's position falls under the business administrator, and my fear is that money will be pulled from that $65,000 down into that or trickle down into other things. Now, I know what you guys do is, I mean, money can be appropriated and slid into different spots, but why should, if the fire department's maybe not using this much, or it could go somewhere else, I believe, at some point in time, or dates are carried over, and I'm being very generic in it, not technical, but why should I have a pool of, why should these people have a pool of $65,000 to be trickled down somewhere else when it can be used to, I mean, we just got done with a beautiful tour of the library. I'm not quite sure why we can't help those folks out instead of having a year and a half of business administrator for $65,000.
Well, I think it's always been an intention since Michelle died that we wanted to fill the business administrator's position. And we've been budgeting that amount of money every year since Michelle died. I'm just going to speak me personally. I really feel this town needs a business administrator.
Absolutely.
We all do.
Absolutely.
And we need one who understands municipal government. So,
but there's something going on where
It hasn't been advertised.
that's not my department.
Right.
We know.
Sorry, but, yeah, no, I truly believe, so we put the money in there, and I pray to God at some point we actually will hire a qualified business administrator, because God knows we could really use one.
Ma'am.
yes, sir.
So the pool of $65,000 that was slotted for the business administrator, that's currently being utilized for other purposes. Would I be correct?
No, that's not.
So there's more money?
No,
Or is it under the
there's
business administrator
a
account?
budget for him, and then there's a budget for the clerk, they're separate, so both monies are in there right now. So it's not being used.
So it's
At
really
the end of the year, so if we
$180,000.
went the entire year and not hire a business administrator, the amount of money that we put into that line would still be there. Unless we transfer it out. Yeah.
How often has that happened within the last year?
Transferred money out of there, well, we had that, previous person, so,
For the squad?
no, we had a business administrator,
Right.
not to mention him.
No.
Can't say her name.
Yeah,
But I mean,
so we did have one for a while, and then she was, I believe, let go,
Yes.
so.
Okay. Councilman, I apologize for interrupting.
What would happen to this?
At this time, that's all I have, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Vice President DeGiorno?
I have a lot. I did take quite a significant amount of time reading it, so forgive me, a lot are just going to be questions because this is our first time.
Sure.
So, 2018 capital requests. $1,050,350,000. Last year, $5.3 million was requested in capital in 2017. Of that, 3.9 was allocated to the municipal building. Was that all used?
No, we never did anything with municipal buildings,
So is that 2017 capital funding still available?
what was issued is,
Okay.
only what was issued.
So is that, the reason I'm asking, there were a few major capital expenses we've heard about, some councils heard about. I don't see them reflected in here at all, and I fully expected to see them in capital purchases. One was the police station. Expenses to move for the police. I see nothing in here for that. but I've seen documentation authorizing construction to begin. But I see nothing, the bond hasn't been approved for that,
No, it hasn't.
so I'm wondering how we're gonna pay for that.
It's supposed to be part of the USDA grant that we're applying for.
That we're applying for and don't have yet, that isn't reflected in the budget.
No, it wouldn't be.
Oh, part of
And,
anticipated?
yeah, once we approve everything, once council approves whatever our plan is, wherever we're gonna go, then we will need to issue our bands, to start the project. Once the project is completed, and once we do the loan for USDA, and it is complete and approved and everything, when everything is done, then USDA will reimburse us for the amount of our expenditures to pay off our bands.
Okay,
And then it becomes a 40-year loan.
but we shouldn't have seen that through capital?
Yeah, that would be my bad. I didn't include it. I apologize for
I had expected to be a significant amount of money, that's why I'm asking.
that. My understanding is it's, what, $4.5 million?
I'm sure it's not free, because I read Chief Stetner's report of requests and furniture and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I was
Yeah.
looking to make sure it was compensated in here, and I see it nowhere.
Yeah, we do have, he was asking about office furniture and things like that. We do have some old capital ordinances that still have some funds in. We can use some of that.
So
before-
some of that may be repurposed?
Yes, it may come out of some old capital ordinances that we have, yeah.
Okay. The other one I wanted to ask about, because it is not reflected in the detail either, was we were told the roof for the library was going to be $400,000.
I believe the mayor spoke with the engineer, and they came up with a way to fix the roof without actually having to replace it. That's why it's such a reduced amount.
So I need to ask them how long that will last. I mean, I know Stan spoke as well. They stood in this meeting and stated $400,000, so, and that was less than a month ago.
My understanding, the mayor informed me that he has spoken to Stan, and Stan informed the mayor that there is something that they can do. He didn't get into detail with me, so I don't know what it is. But he told me it would only cost about $150,000 to do what they needed to do to fix the roof so that it wouldn't be covered.
Okay. As long as it's covered. I'm going to come back to capital plan on recreation improvements. Last year, we had $130,000 allocated to recreation improvements to improve the fields in town, and none of it was done. So I'm looking at another $100,000 this year. So that's, are you telling me there is $230,000 available to take care of our fields?
Well, you also have...
That doesn't include the pool. The pool is separate, and I
Pool is
understand that.
separate, yeah, pool is separate. You'll have the open space money this year.
Okay, I don't see any of that reflected anywhere either, so that's another question I was going to
What,
ask
the
about.
open space?
Yes,
It's in its own section.
but not where we're going to use the money, because we don't know yet.
I'll be perfectly honest with you, I really
I
don't
saw the
know.
number allocated, but I
Yeah.
didn't see
I
a
wasn't,
plan.
unfortunately, I wasn't a part of a lot of the open space discussion. I really know very little about it, to be perfectly honest with you.
Do we know, has that commission been formed yet?
I honestly don't know.
Because I don't believe council's heard anything. Okay?
That'd be correct.
All right, I'm just going to make a couple notes to ask the mayor.
Please.
If he returns your email, can you let him know I need to speak with him?
I'm sorry.
If he gets back to you, can you let him know I need to speak with him?
Just for the public, in case they haven't noticed, there was some capital funds allocated by the police for cameras. They were looking at least 10 cameras, so that will be some benefit to those who were asking. Street.
Vehicle or for the?
Don't forget me, I have a lot of notes. question on the, is there a cap bank in place for the
Yes.
public
Yes.
employees? For how many days they can bank? Sick days.
So, okay. So we're talking about a cap bank in terms of going above the 2% of the 3.5%?
Yeah, not that. In
Okay.
other words, can people still cash out 600
You're
sick
talking about
days?
sick and vacation,
Sick and
right?
vacation, yeah.
Okay. Contractually, ASME, PDA, superiors, no, they're entitled to 55% of unused and, earned and unused sick and vacation.
Okay.
It's all contractual.
The billing that we have in here for the police and firemen's retirement system is from 2016. Is that number not changed in 2 years?
No.
We've been consistently funding at the same level? Or is it
No,
just
we
an
get
old
it-
form
we
that
get-
didn't change?
No, we actually get a new bill every year.
Okay.
2016?
It says 2016 right here. Effective date 1/1/2016, submitted on 9/28/2016. State of New Jersey Division of Pensions and Benefits.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was for a retro pay.
Oh,
That was an invoice for
it's
a
something
retro pay.
specific old that has to be in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, that's for a retro pay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Revenue breakdown. The, let's see. Rental of town facilities for the Armory Garage, is that the school district that we no longer have the rent from?
That's correct.
Okay. There was a significant change in public and private revenue from 2017 to 2018 projected to the tune of $550,000.
That's our grants.
Is that the grant for
Yeah.
the,
That's all grants.
it's all grants?
It's all grants. No, well, I'm sorry, Council, finish your question, I want to make sure I answer it correctly.
No, well, it said public and private revenue, and under that was other special items. Both were significantly changed, significantly impacted.
Can I just see what page you're looking
You
at?
sure can.
Just lift it up, I can see it. Okay, yes, that is all grants.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I'm answering correctly.
Just for general discussion, I request I not get my, was it $6 raise? Or 60? I see there was a raise in here put in for us. I don't want one.
Was
I don't know
there?
how anyone
That
else
was
feels
last
about
year.
that.
No, I don't know, that was last year.
It said $3,060, I think, or
Yeah,
That's what it was,
that's your
yeah.
current salary.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, it
what
is?
said.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, more than we thought.
Don't spend the $60 all in one place.
I just did. First check the ACO. Last subject I want to bring up is Anybody who knows me well enough knows I've spent a lot of time in recreation, and I find it seriously underfunded. I'm going to run the numbers. I got some rough numbers from the Still Hill organization. What I'd like to do is find a way to make sure every sport is equally funded as opposed to the organization itself. I find it unfair that some organizations are having one sport, some have 3, some have 6, some have boys and girls, some have just boys. We're servicing the children of Phillipsburg. I really don't care what sport they participate in, what activity they participate in. I think they should all have equal opportunity. I know from experience, the funding we get from the town to an organization I'm part of, it's less than $10 a child. That doesn't go very far, but we're all grateful to have it. What I'd like to do is, I want to find a way to double it, possibly triple it. Right now it's all, and I understand there's some issues with giving to nonprofits, and I do have more suggestions on the individual nonprofit items as we get further into this process, but I know we need to find, I don't want to add dollars. What I want to do is find dollars to take out. So my request is, respectfully, I want the majority of that to go into recreation. If there's anything left, I want to make sure it goes to the library and the services that everybody utilizes, such as the senior center. I just find everything to be seriously underfunded.
You don't read my list?
No. But I spent an enormous amount of time looking at this. I know I can find that money, so I will gladly go through the budget and find it, but my suggestion is that's where I want to find it. We have recreation seriously underfunded. We spend over $100,000 at almost a loss to operate the pool, but it's for public benefit, and that service is probably 1% of our population. You know, we do these things for public good, and the public benefits from it. I want to promote it more, and I want to make it more affordable for the Phillipsburg families, because I can tell you it's not easy. And, you know, Bobby, you know from being around me, well, probably too long, but, you know, I personally floated what started out as 2 kids a year. 2 kids became 6 kids a year. 6 kids became 20 kids. I can't do that many. But it's not just supporting these kids, it's feeding them breakfast, lunch, and dinner because their parents don't. You know what? We have to find a way to take this burden off our organizations. So that's all I have.
For the record, Vice President, it's not that they don't want to, it's that a lot of our residents can't. So I think that's what you meant.
Well, you know, I've had children for 3 days.
Well, let me know, I'll drop mine off this week.
No.
Okay.
Been there, done.
Thank you. But I concur with everything that you said.
That's all.
Excellent.
It wasn't as bad as I expected.
You can clap now if you like.
I don't know.
Councilman Lutz.
Ron Titus, we gave Ron Titus for the train tower, 10,000.
In last year's budget, yes.
Yes, and nothing was spent out of that?
He didn't spend anything out of it.
Okay, I was told he came up to you and you said he had to talk to the mayor.
I never spoke to him.
Okay, okay.
Council.
But is it going to be in this, is it still in the budget?
It's already appropriated then, I think.
Let me check, I'll tell you. I don't remember if we did or not.
I didn't see it in the budget at all.
Actually, no, it's not in there.
Okay, that's what we have to put in there.
Same amount as last year, 10,000?
Well,
Was it spent somewhere else?
No.
Or
It wasn't spent.
unspent?
It wasn't spent.
Bobby just mentioned it, and he's 100% right. I think we all got an email on that, he was no longer wanted or whatever. I forget how it said.
It was personal in tone, to the effect that Mr. Titus no longer had access to those resources.
Right.
And they would take his name off of that account. I can certainly over that email if you need to see it. I again concur with Councilman Lutz. I do believe that we should establish another fund for Mr. Titus with his name, so he is capable of getting those funds to use. I want him to be able to have access to that.
In other words, you want a line item in the budget?
Well, yes, and I understand it'd be a 2/3 vote in order to do that. Would that be correct?
No, you are, to increase, but are we talking about the switch tower? What are we talking about?
Yeah, the switch tower.
Switch tower.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's already appropriated, doesn't that?
The money should be there.
His money should be there for
It was in
2017.
last year's budget, he didn't spend it, it's in the reserve
You
year.
can't take it back to the general
You
fund?
can't, yeah, good, no, yeah,
So are you asking to allocate another 10 or 20,000, Councilman?
it's in the reserve year.
It will
Even-
lapse to
the
the general
reserve.
fund after the reserve.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's in the reserve fund.
Right, so Council
Does
President's
he
correct.
have expenditures that he hasn't turned in? Does anybody know?
He said that he applied them, and that they were denied for some reason.
Oh, what do you mean applied? Do you know what that
No, he
means?
said denied.
Denied, but he applied them to the 10,000, I thought.
So he has submitted.
Submitted them.
Yeah, he has receipts which he handed in.
But they were
If he
denied.
has receipts that are
I
dated
couldn't
last
tell you.
year, we can charge it.
Yeah,
If he has receipts that are dated last year, he can turn them in and we can charge it to the reserve account.
Okay.
I haven't spoken to him in almost a year and a half. So unless he talked to somebody else, but I personally haven't.
No, he's spoken to the mayor. I don't believe that anybody's blaming you, though.
Yeah.
So,
So this may be a 2017.
Can we?
If he has receipts that are dated in 2017, we can charge it to the reserve year.
Okay.
It'll be-
Can we boost that up
do you
to
want to make,
15?
do we need to make a motion tonight and pass it by 2/3?
No, so I mean, you can suggest, as you have, to Bob, that there be consideration from the mayor's end to include a line item for 2018 in the amount of $10,000, assuming that's an appropriate amount going forward.
Yeah.
If that's not presented back to the council, then you obviously, after you have the public hearing, you need to do a 2/3 majority vote of the whole council to increase the budget. Ideally, so we're kicking tires here tonight, right? I mean,
Right.
in layman's terms, that's what we're doing, kicking tires. So,
Yeah, we have 4 meetings to figure it out.
The other thing, if I may talk to the accountant, could you please, for nonprofit, we cannot give them like $3,500. We have to have a separate spreadsheet or whatever, and they give us receipts, and that's how we deduct the $3,500. Is that?
Instead of calling, I'm sorry, if I may,
Oh, I'm sorry.
instead of calling it a donation, we're calling it a reimbursement.
Okay.
Yeah, there's certain restrictions as to donations.
Now, what does that,
but
in the nonprofit, does that include the youth center, the daycare center, senior center? Does that include all of them? Is that the way it has to
I would
happen?
I would have to look specifically there to tell you that, but I can do that for you.
If we
I don't wanna
have the
say-
rules so that we can make sure it's communicated to the organizations.
Right, yeah.
That-
That's the main thing that I was driving at.
Okay.
Because it's gonna be different than last year, and they're gonna wonder why it's different than last year.
I think we did that with the sports organizations.
No, last year it all went through. but-
Yeah, no, they submitted
Oh, we
reimbursements, there's
Right.
backup for us.
Right.
And that's what everybody did for us, they submitted backup for what we gave them, and the partner was okay with that.
Okay. Right. Right now, that's all I have on my list for resident. Right. Yeah, because he's refurbishing it.
so what we're going to do, we're actually going to make a motion to provide that line item for $15,000 allocated to the switch tower.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we are going
15 or
to, 15,000.
15, okay.
Yes, we are. I will go ahead and make that motion.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion?
So it'll be for the 2018 budget, the line item of $15,000 for the switching tower.
Whatever that project is, it's switching tower.
Right.
Yeah.
That's inclusive of the 1710. 15 altogether.
Right, so the question Councilman McVeigh is asking is that we had $10,000 from 2017 that was not wholly or even partially appropriated and spent. Are we?
Is that 10 plus 15? That's what I'm asking.
No, I believe it was just for 15 because there are some other allocations that the council has considered. Yeah, 2017.
So $15,000 line item for the 2018 going forward?
Yes.
And clarification, is this an advisory from the council, or is this an actual?
At this point, it'll be advisory because we haven't
Okay.
introduced the budget.
So roll call vote, Vicki.
Council Vice President DeGramo,
Yes.
Councilman McVeigh,
Yes.
Councilman Litz,
Yes.
Councilman Davis,
Yes.
Council President Fulker.
Yes. Okay, is that all you had, Councilman?
Yes, that's all I have.
All right, excellent. Since Vice President DeGramo kind of stole everything from me, I will, almost. I do want to say thank you to the library and the Friends of the Library for all the emails I got today. I can tell you that cutting the funding to the library was never on the table, not once. I am in full agreement with the amount requested. I like Council Vice President DeGramo, would also like to find more money for our library. I understand that the county is going in a different direction, but we have promised Phillipsburg first. Our library is here in Phillipsburg, and we need to commit ourselves to that. With that, moving forward, Ms. Messon, thank you. Mr. Bullock, thank you. Thank you. You have more questions?
I do. Yeah.
All right. Do you want me to finish?
I do.
All right. So I do have some things I'd like to put up for possible allocation and removal, but I do have questions. We no longer are providing money to the Phillipsburg Emergency Squad. Is that correct?
No, it's actually in the 18 budget.
It is.
It is?
Yeah.
How much is in there?
5,000.
Our sending districts provide 15. Are we capable of matching our sending districts?
Honestly, that's up to you.
Council, how do you feel about that? Okay. I would allocate, so the $5,000 is in there. I apologize for not seeing it. So we will go ahead and discuss it for next year. Thank you, Councilman Lutz. I do want to allocate $20,000 to the senior center. We do give $20,000 to the Firth Youth Center. I feel it's only, our seniors are just as important as our children. I would like to go ahead and make a motion to allocate $20,000 to the senior center.
Which is presently?
I believe it's 12,005. But remember, last year we did have to pass a few emergency resolutions for repairs. You know, this would take that away. We'd be able to take care of it.
And all that would be doing is put an agreed amount that we will reimburse up to, given the stipulation they're going to send us, or since we own the building, is that?
I believe that's a flat stipend.
Right.
It's a flat stipend.
We still can flat stipend?
Yes. Yeah, it's our building.
Right.
Because it's our building?
Yep.
That's the reason why? Okay.
I'd like to go ahead and make that motion.
Second.
So moved.
Councilman, did you have discussion?
No,
Motion and a second.
yeah, the only thing I would like to just have an inquiry, just have Senator served on the senior center board, to ask them about what additional sources of revenue they're pursuing. We did increase it. Bob, do you remember how much we increased the allocation last year?
$2,500.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so this is an additional 7,500. I think we just need to make sure that in terms of the partnership, we're both doing our work in terms of fundraising. So I have no objections to this measure, but we need to make sure that they're on a path to fiscal sustainability.
Understood, Councilman.
Councilman President. One thing about the senior, well, we heard a lot, personally speaking, door knocking last year. We heard a lot about seniors want to utilize that. They have the lack of transportation to get there. It really has to, I mean, if anything, 7,500, we really have to improve them getting there. And I know there's a lot of, we all sat there, you know, whether as council on the corners or us as just visitors or out in the state. The places definitely need a repair. I wish it could be more than 7,500, but let's look at transportation moving forward on that. Get our people there.
I agree, Councilman, thank you.
There is transportation now.
They're having issues with some of the transportation routes and
Yes.
the amount of transportation. I will, now that I'm on that board, or I will be after we go ahead and make the resolution Councilman Davis has proposed. Councilman Eck was in full agreement with you, by the way. I can't wait to do that. I think it's important that we get them that $20,000, so we can roll call vote, Vicky.
Council President DeGrom, Vice President DeGrom.
Yes.
Councilman McVeigh,
Yes.
Councilman Litz,
Yes.
Councilman Davis,
Yes.
Council President Fulper.
Yes. Okay. My final two are somewhat a bit controversial in nature. No, I'll let you go after. If that's okay, Councilwoman. CFO, I have a question with regard to the line items under the division of the business administrator. We were paying another employee out of the business administrator account, yes?
Yes.
Okay. But we don't have a business administrator.
That's correct.
Right. So why are we paying for someone in the business administrator account? Because I'll be honest with you, to me it looks like a slush fund. It looks like that's what we're using. And I don't mean that in a derogatory term towards you, but I feel like we're playing that card game, trying to find a queen. And I gotta tell you, I just don't like how it's currently set up. Can you explain why we are using the business administrator account to pay this clerk?
When the prior business administrator was there, she had a clerk underneath her who left and.
Can't hear.
So this was not that individual?
Underneath the previous business administrator?
Correct.
No, that person left to go to another job and this person then took over that person's position.
Right. Okay. Is it normal practice for someone just to take over a position, or would that come before council?
They did, excuse me, didn't they have one of the workers being the secretary for the business administrator?
She was, the girl that was there was a clerk.
Right.
And helped her with some of the paperwork and like some of the sick and vacation books and things like that.
Okay, but then was her salary taken out of the business?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where it came from.
Okay, so under direction of council, we need to just keep it strictly to the finances and the money spent, Councilman. Because, in my opinion, I'll be quite honest with you, I don't think this has come before us. I don't think it's a necessary position, and the amount of titles that are being used are driving me nuts when I go onto the website and I read the newspaper and people send me Facebook screenshots. I am going to make a motion that we remove the line item for the clerk under the Division of the Business Administrator's account.
Which page are we on, Bobby?
Well, it doesn't have a page, but it is under the personnel thing.
In the detail?
Yes.
So the suggestion, so again, this is an advisory motion at this point. Not mine.
I second. You can go ahead and open the floor for discussion.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't. Why is that number 43 $7 there? I can't correlate that number. I mean, going back to 2017-44.
Right, so perhaps to the extent, I'd like to make a suggestion, to the extent that there's questions in the council regarding the salary that's been appropriated to this particular employee, that those questions were presented to the mayor, either through his office or through Bob.
I've also spoken with the auditing firm about this issue, and they're currently investigating. Truthfully,
By the way,
I can't say much more.
And I do mean to cut you off. I'm not
I
gonna
am
say I don't
thankful
mean to
that you're
cut
cutting me off.
cutting you off. I would rather the council pursue that route as opposed to discussing this particular issue in open session right now.
Noted. Thank you, counsel.
And now you can do what you want.
Roll call vote, Vicki?
Council Vice President DeGirolamo,
Yes.
Councilman McVeigh,
Yes, advisory motion to the
Advisory
mayor
only.
requesting that he reconsider it.
Yes.
Councilman Lutz,
No.
Councilman Davis,
No.
Council President Fulper.
Yes. The second one on my list will come as no surprise, but the former mayor did not have this position. I do believe that we are, again, wasting money that can be allocated towards Vice President DeGirolamo's suggestions. Yes. So I would also, at this point, make a motion to remove the confidential aid position under the Division of Mayor and Council, that line item.
And again, for the record, that would also be an advisory motion by the council to the mayor.
Second.
Discussion. Council.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Roll call vote, Vicki.
Council Vice President DeGirolamo,
Yes.
Councilman McVeigh,
Yes.
Councilman Lutz,
No.
Councilman Davis,
No.
Council President Fulper.
Yes. That is all I have for this evening. So, Council Vice President, feel free to have the floor.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark. I missed a few. Sorry, Bob. I wasn't done. Youth Court. I see nothing in there for 2018 requested. I know that was primarily grant money.
It
Is
is
that
grant
correct?
money, and they haven't submitted the grant yet.
They haven't submitted a grant, that's why we see not, it's a
Let
lot of
me
money.
rephrase that. They may have submitted it, but we haven't gotten back a letter that it's been approved.
So if that comes through, it'll come before council as a resolution to
As a
accept.
Chapter 159
And then we
budget
will
insertion,
add
yes.
it in and
Yes.
it'll become.
Yes.
Okay. It just, It's an important service to the community. I want to make sure it's not something that wasn't submitted for, ignored, turned down.
Trust me, they're on top of it. Mike Muckles is very good at his job. and
I
he's
know.
handling it.
That's,
As soon as he gets the word from the state that it's been approved, we'll get a copy of it, and if it's after the budget's adopted, we'll do a chapter 159 budget insertion.
is the same go for the Clean Communities grant?
Same thing. Yeah.
All grants.
And I know Stan mentioned the phase 3 for Heckman was approved.
It was approved.
Was that because it was after the fact?
Yeah, I haven't gotten a letter from the state saying it's been approved. If I get it prior to introduction, I'll put it in and it won't affect what's there because it's on both sides, revenue and expenses.
One other thing I did want to bring up, if we could consider, and again, I don't want to make a motion at this time, possibly at the next meeting, is to consider 2 to 3 more crossing guards in town. I did not see it within the police budget. We have some very high traffic areas. People have spoken at the meetings about them, where we have very large amounts of primarily middle schoolers walking home, causing trouble. Hopefully not too much, but, so if we could, I know one of the recommendations was they just feel a second secure, crossing guard could be used. I don't think they are that large of an expense, but I think it would be an invaluable asset to improve the crossing of the children, help streamline for the community, their walking routes. So I just ask everybody to consider that, so if I find the money, those are the 2 areas I'm going to look to find it for. Thank you. That's it.
Councilman Lutz?
Yes, I got one more thing. And she reminded me of it. I feel that we need another inspector for the town of Phillipsburg. I think we should add a full-time inspector, another full-time inspector, but keep the part-time inspector.
Councilman, I'm in complete agreement with you.
Years, you know, this is going back maybe 20 years ago, you didn't really need it, but with all the influx of the people from out of town going into apartments now, we really need as many as we can afford.
I'm 100% in agreement with you. As a matter of fact, I was going to wait till after we spoke of the Reynolds ordinance at the work session because there's a letter I'd like to share with the council with regard to inspections, and I think they would fall right in line. I definitely believe we need another inspector. Anyone else? Okay, we can move forward to public discussion. Mr. Block, you're going to steal the microphone from CFO Merlo.
I forgot about that.
CFO Merlo and Mr. Zimmerman, do you have the title of the account representative? Mr. Zimmerman, thank you for coming out this evening and for helping us. Appreciate it. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Ed Bullock. I live at 344 Warren Street. I'm the president of the Phillipsburg Library Board of Trustees. And I wanted to comment on the portion of discussion about the cost of the library roof, okay? Because at our last meeting, and Mrs. Messling, who's the director, can correct me if I'm wrong, but at our last meeting, our discussion was, and the mayor was there, that Stan Schreck had inspected the roof, and that the roof was shot and could not be repaired. Now, I'm not disparaging the mayor in saying that, okay, because that can make it look like I'm here to make him look bad. What I'm saying is the communication is old, because our communication from our last meeting was that it was inspected and the roof needed to be completely replaced. Keep in mind, okay,
That's what we got.
yeah, keep in mind, okay, I've been around a while with this issue. Actually, as far back as replacing part of the roof, and we have had numerous repairs to that roof. We have tried our best to keep that roof in working condition without having to replace it, but we're at the point now where that's not the case. Repair is out of the question. We have an area where there was a fencing around the air conditioning because the neighbors thought it was unsightly, and we tried to, be a good neighbor. We had a fencing around that. The wind would shake it over time, where it was drilled into the roof. It created some issues. We had that. We had the fencing taken off. We have had many people come from different roofing companies over time, do repairs for us. So I didn't want to let that pass because I didn't want anybody to think a repair could be something very minor as opposed to what is very major. And, the fact is that roof has been there a long time. Roofs need to be repaired like anything else that you're talking about. And so that's a very important situation. And actually, the mayor did talk about the fact that our new roof that would be proposed would be an A roof. Thank you for bringing that up because I forgot about that.
He did tell us that.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
400 to 125 is a big difference.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't know how.
If we need 4, we need to know we need 4.
Yeah, that's the other part of my point. And I want to thank you all for coming because we feel that anyone who can come in the capacity that you came in gets to see the library in depth and how it really is and how it serves the people in Phillipsburg from various different walks of life, the different things that they do, and the unknown things, which are many, that people do not know that we offer at the Phillipsburg Library. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having us.
That?
Just send it there.
State your name and address for the record.
Joe Minor, 392 South Main Street. And I hope, I am favoring strongly the doubling of the money for the kiddies in town. I'd like to see you go right ahead and pass a motion like you had on these others and dig up the money later, but I have to defer to the person that got to defer to your way because you're on the council and I admire it.
I'll find it.
Thank you, Joe. And I'm confident she will find it.
I'll find it.
Mr. Boyce, state your name and address for the record.
Dan Boyce, 244 Irwin. Like what brought up about the library roof, I'm really troubled by the difference. I think anybody knows. If your boots have a leak, you don't put a bread bag on your foot, you're still going to get wet feet. That minute amount to repair the roof is not going to cut it. And I kept hearing, I don't know how many times, the mayor said, the mayor said, the mayor said. I think everybody has really found out that the things the mayor said, once the roof is repaired, you will find all that in the fiction section of the library. Okay, I have a question about the transfer of money from one fund to another. I understand that the mayor transferred, I understand that there was a transfer of over $50,000 from the salt fund for the road. I watched on Irwin Street people slide through Irwin Street at the stop sign and smash into cars on Fillmore Street because there was no salt put out when it was needed. That's really pathetic. Because what if there was a kid in that car, or what if there was a kid walking on that street? Wherever that $50,000, I mean, we're spending $50,000, we're spending money on flowers and signs and, I don't know, I mean, you have a fund, you're designating money here for one subject and then it's being used for strippers or whatever. I don't know what it's being used for, but it's being used for...
Let's just try and keep a calm candor.
Yeah.
Thank you. They're children in the room.
Okay. I apologize, but if it's being used, at least say this is what we need it for. I mean, if people have a problem...
When you transfer money, it has to go from one place to another place. That's where it goes, right? Am I right?
Correct, Councilman.
That's where it goes. I mean, if you look at the transfers, it says from the mayor's office to anywhere else, but it has to go to that department.
Okay, then I stand corrected, because I was just told the money was taken from here and,
No.
No, so the budget is presented, is adopted, right? After it's introduced, public hearing, all that stuff is formally adopted, and then you're stuck with the budget until November. And then come November, you can start doing transfers, essentially inter-line item transfers. So you can take money from buildings and ground and run it over to payroll or whatever it might be. Unfortunately, legal gets hit all the time. There's always being money taken out of legal line item. Well, right. I have no idea. It's never going in, it's always coming out.
In this case, we were actually putting money, in this case, we actually put money, the $50,000 he's referring to actually went into legal.
God bless you.
Yeah, there you go.
God bless everyone. So anyway, so that is how it's done. It's done by resolution of the council, and I'm joking, but I'm also being serious. So it's done by resolution of the council approving the transfer of the monies from one line item in the budget to another line item in the budget. There's not an additional appropriation of monies that was not originally approved. It's you're looking at the budget, and you're saying, okay, and relying upon Bob, the CFO, to say, we have surplus monies here, we need those monies over here, and we can't spend monies out of here unless the monies are there to spend, so we're there.
well, two things, like I said, I stand corrected. I was just told it was taken and where, when, nobody knew. Then who am I to know? Two, that sounds like maybe needs to be more done to the planning, because it sounds like somebody maybe is not planning right when they're doing the budget.
I will say this, and I'll shut up. It's a common occurrence. It's necessary budgeting item.
Mr. Boyce, thank you. We will take that comment into consideration. State your name and address for the record.
Bill Timmon, 230 South Main Street. Listening to the conversation tonight, there seems to be areas where the money that was appropriated for 17 may not have been spent. Where is that? Is it just floating in the internet somewhere? Or is it in a fund that, like you voted to try and raise the tower from 10 to 15 for 18, that 10,000 is still available to use, and now there's 25,000 potential?
So you have 2 years to spend your budget. So your budget for 17 is over, you're in 2018 now. 17, anything that was unspent in the budget rolls into your appropriation reserves. It's a reserve year. You can use whatever funding remains in that reserve funds only for 2017 items. So it has to be something that occurred or was related to expenses that incurred in 2017. After that year is over, the balance of that reserve goes into the general fund. So in essence,
so then basically, if you don't have receipts for stuff that you purchased, you lose it.
Well, I mean, you have to have backup for purchases being made by the municipality.
And the second question, when will we get a chance to view the budget?
You heard it now. The council. It's not, it hasn't been introduced. I mean, obviously, once the council has the budget in front of it that it deems acceptable and introduces the budget, it'll be up for public discussion right now.
So after March the 8th?
Right now it's deliberative, right? So I would counsel against disclosing the budget.
Upon introduction.
Yeah, wait till it's introduced.
Yeah, and there'll be at least a full month in between that and
Yes,
public hearing
yes.
on it as well. So you have a full month to review it before it comes up for public hearing.
So it wouldn't be much before sometime in April, is what you're saying?
The public hearing?
No, that the public can see the budget.
Oh, no, we have to introduce it, and then there's at least 28 days before we can have a hearing on it.
It needs to be introduced by March 15th or the first meeting after March 15th.
Right.
So approximately somewhere in that area, you know.
So the third week in March then approximately.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, will that be on the internet or?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Mr. Field? State your name and address for the record.
Phillipsburg, 237 Valley Avenue, Phillipsburg. Can you tell me why we need another building inspector? We have 4 now. I remember back in the day we had Matt Machini and Don Casimpius. And ran the whole town.
Town's a lot different since then.
It ain't getting no bigger.
Yeah, but it got a lot worse.
So let's make the ones we, our building inspectors that we have now, let's make them do their job. Houses in this town that don't have certificate of occupancies. And people are living in them and paying rent.
Mr. Philly, can you get us a list of those properties?
Yeah, please.
That's not my job.
No, but Mr. Philly.
How can you say it?
Okay, who's your IT programmer?
I don't believe that we have one.
There's your problem. There it is.
Thank you, Mr. Philly.
You're welcome.
Very much. Oh, I believe, hold on 1 second.
Can we get an IT programmer? Or do we have one?
We just established we don't have one, but I do believe that.
Okay, so maybe we should get one.
State your name and address for the record.
Email person, 94 Bowman Street, Phillipsburg. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the council members for the support that you've expressed for the library. I believe the library is a very essential part of town. It provides a lot of good programs and opportunities for children, adults. It's just a wonderful part of our town, and we really need to support it, so I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. Mr. Bruce, does your wife still write children's books?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else? State your name and address for the record, please.
I grew up in Phillipsburg. I live in San Diego now, back there visiting. And the one thing that really appalled me was Green's Bridge. If you graffiti on it, it's just going to invite more idiots with spray cans. And you come down and you have the historic bridge, and you got the plaque that says the historic flats, and then you got the graffiti. Just hope you can take care of it.
We'll make a note of that and make sure it gets handed out to
There's a lot of
DPW.
guys like you being up here, that it really, it's just awful. It's
Sure.
the first thing you see when you come into Phillipsburg.
I agree wholeheartedly. Before we move forward, can I just get your name and address for the record?
Patrick, Petrol.
Patrick, thank you.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Anyone else? Great. There seeing none, we have overtime. Yes, absolutely, Nicole, please. Are you going to pass out?
I'm going to throw up for myself. Nicole Timmerman, 112 North Riverview Road. I just have a question in regards to the fields. There's a town budget of $108,000 to take care of the field. Did I quote you right?
About that, yeah.
Okay.
For this year, last year was 130.
All right, $130,000.
In capital.
My kids are playing on concrete in Dollar Heights. If that is taken care of by the town maintains the fields, the town breaks the fields, the town mows the fields, how do you figure out how the money is being divvied out and spent?
Last year, I may say.
Is that a legitimate question?
Last year, Mr. Fay, Bernie Fay, Councilman Fay, went around with a couple of...
Yeah, we did a lot of the work ourselves.
Right, but he went around with different contractors to get different prices to fix the ball field up. That's where your money goes.
Okay.
It just never got
It never happened.
Okay, I would like to see it, but okay, thank you.
We all wish, actually, I got a quote to get 2 fields done for free, if we contract with the town. So we're going to be contacting those people.
So, but when the town goes out and mows, they mow, so you're paying the town people to maintain the field. Does that come out of?
No, they do.
No, the regular.
No, that's
They
a
do
capital
it.
budget, yeah, that's included in their salary, so those guys are DPW, so that's in their day-to-day operation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you. Okay, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming out this evening. Friends of the library, thank you for having us this evening. And you know what, apparently I skipped open time because I just got yelled at by Councilman McVeigh. Councilman Lutz, let's go to open time. Would you like to say anything?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, Vice President DiGirolamo.
Nothing, I've said enough.
Councilman McVeigh.
Yeah, I do. I want to thank you all for coming out because this is an extremely dry subject. I don't even know why you're here, but God bless you, and you're whatever you're here, it's amazing. I do want to welcome back, is it Mr. Petrol? Well, welcome back, first and foremost, and then thank you for coming up and expressing your concerns. One of my favorite books in the whole world is Fixing Broken Windows by George Kelling, and it has to do with everything what you said about graffiti and how New York was restored in the 80s and how folks like Giuliani and stuff kept pressing hard and cleaning up all the subway cars and the spray paints and sticking to it to show the people that are dumping garbage on the streets and spray painting and stuff, staying consistent with basically this is our town and this is not going to happen here, and they gave way to that because they kept fixing it. Once the dust settles here during our transition period and this council's up running with steam, we have a lot of good ideas we've expressed since January 1st as a council as a whole, and these are one of the things that I know Council President knows that's on my radar, is fixing the broken windows mentality, the Kelling's mentality, sticking with that, and taking ownership of garbage that lies upon our streets and stuff. So thank you for reminding me of why I'm up here and what I got to do moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Councilman Davis.
I'm good, thank you.
I'm good too. Thanks for coming out. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.